Hello, Miami. You're watching 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of 305 Sports Now. Once again, I am your host, Will. And you know I love my Canes, and you know I love my Canes talk. And who better to bring on to talk about the Miami Hurricanes than a very good friend of the show, and he is the host of Locked On Canes and an occasional host on WQAM Sports. Doesn't matter the event, he does it. All right. And this man is none other than the great Alex Donno. Alex, how's it going, my friend?
Well, I know you were about to call me a young man. You corrected yourself. I'm more than happy being young. I don't mind.
I should have because you're younger than me.
Well, I'll take it.
Awesome. I'm just saying young man all the time because you know my profession. So I'm like, young man, get over here, that kind of stuff. So I'm saying young man. So I'm like, okay, so you are younger than me though. So technically you are a young man. So that's
Take it.
okay. So anyways, okay. So the spring practice has been popping, right? I get reports from what I hear from you and other podcasts that they're able to attend practice. And I love what I'm seeing on social media as far as Patterson and those hits and Lofton and Trader and Carr and the throws from Cam Ward. But you're there. I mean, you're there live and in the flesh. So can you let us know what you have seen and who's impressed you the most and how impressive are the 2024 kids?
Yeah, so let me start with what we're usually able to watch. The media is allowed to watch, I don't know, probably about 45 minutes or so of practice. And we get to watch a lot of, and there are useful things you can take out of these things. Individual drills, like broken off in position groups. We get to watch one of the more entertaining things are the one-on-one drills, defensive backs and receivers with, all the quarterbacks throwing them footballs. So you get to see, Cam Ward's deep balls look especially good today. Jakari Brown popping some days. We get to watch, some 7-on-7s. We don't usually, in fact, I'm not sure if we have to this point at all been able to watch 11-on-11s. That's usually part of the closed portion of practice. And so, yeah, let me start with maybe a couple of names you didn't mention. You mentioned a lot of the names that have been prevalent, so I can circle back to those. I think Daryl Porter, the veteran cornerback, has looked really good in practice so far. Very competitive in the one-on-one drills. When they're doing individual drills, he really always seems to be one of the guys that gives 110% in the drills and looks really sharp out there. I really like the transfer safety who, could potentially also play nickel, Mish Powell from Washington. I think he has looked really good out there, and he and Xavier Restrepo get very competitive in the one-on-one drills. Restrepo wins some of those battles. Powell wins some of those battles. Sticking with defensive backs, I also think Jadis Richard has looked really good, and he is definitely somebody competing to be one of the, starting outside corners, with Daryl Porter probably having one of those spots locked down. You talked about some of like the young guys who have been out there looking really good. The story of practice for the last couple of weeks has been early enrollee tight end Elijah Lofton. Because he does a little bit of everything, and he looks good no matter where he's lining up. Like, we'll see him go through. He's a tight end, supposedly. I just call him a football player. He works at running back sometimes, and he looks very natural. I was watching him in inside running drills on Tuesday. Obviously, tight end. Sometimes he'll line up as a receiver. And, we talked to Lofton on Tuesday, and, he kind of seems surprised that we're all so fascinated by how much he moves around. Like, to him, I guess it's just what he's been doing, going back to probably his youth days. And he moved around a lot in high school at Bishop Gorman in Vegas. So I think he was kind of surprised that we're making such a big deal out of it. But I think you can plug him in at multiple spots. Josiah Trader, early enroll receiver, has looked really good. He's had a lot of competitive battles in one-on-ones. And Nye Carr, you also mentioned his name. He doesn't get taught. He's another receiver, early enrollee freshman, doesn't get talked about as much as JoJo. And I think a lot of that has to do with, JoJo being a local kid, and he definitely deserves the praise. But Carr, coming from Georgia, maybe less known to Miami fans who, tend to focus on high schools in South Florida. He's looked excellent. I think he could carve out some playing time this year. There are other, in addition to Elijah Lofton, some of the other tight ends have been looking good out there. Riley Williams, I thought, had a really good day in practice on Tuesday. Elijah Arroyo, who's had terrible injury luck the past couple of years. Arroyo has looked really good I think we're in the fourth week now of spring practice. He's looked consistently really good. And there's some of the linebackers I've liked watching. Wesley Besaint, I think, has really been a leader in that room, especially with Kiko Mauinoa not practicing in the spring. Besaint has kind of taken on the elder statesman role. And I like what I've seen from Popo Aguirre and also from Cameron Pruitt. Bobby Pruitt, he goes by, I don't know, his name's Cameron, he goes by Bobby. But he's looked really good as an early enrollee linebacker. So, and then, I'm the quarterbacks as well. Just a lot more competitive room. I mean, Cam Ward has been as good as advertised so far. I've been pleasantly surprised, but his reputation precedes him. So I kind of knew we were in for something interesting. And so Ward has looked really good. Reese Poffenbarger has also looked good. And then I also feel like Jakari Brown and Emory Williams have kind of stepped up their play. And I think Judd Anderson, the true freshman, he's obviously he's a little bit behind the other guys because they're all experienced and he's not. But he looks impressive out there, and he's a giant at 6'7". So those are some of the guys. I'm like rattling off these notes in my brain. If I left anybody important out, I apologize. But those are some of the players to me who have been standing out.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that. You mentioned quite a few tight ends. One of the biggest criticisms of the team last year is that they underutilized the tight end position. I completely agree with that assessment. I think we all saw the eye test. Do you feel, based upon, because we've heard a lot of good things coming out of the tight end room in practice, do you think that they're really going to emphasize utilizing the tight end more in the passing game now that they have more weapons as far as the position goes?
It'd be foolish not to. If they don't emphasize the tight ends more, I'm really going to start to question Shannon Dawson, who I like, but I'll start to like, why aren't we doing it this year? And I also, it's not just on Dawson, because no matter what play is called, it's up to Cam Ward to get the football in the direction of the tight end. So part of that obviously is on quarterback play, and of course it's on the tight ends getting open and getting involved. And so part of the problem last year, like I can't put it all on the play calling, and I can put some of it on Tyler Van Dyke, but not all of it on Tyler Van Dyke. The tight end room just wasn't what it was. It wasn't last year what I think it can be this year. With Elijah Arroyo injured for almost the entire year last year, Riley Williams, as a true freshman, played a lot last year, and I thought he did a pretty good job when he really should not have been playing so much so early, but just wasn't all that involved in the passing game. He caught 8 catches. He actually caught the only touchdown of any tight end last year. And then Cam McCormick had some drops. He was more of a blocker. And then they didn't really have anyone else, because another guy who looks physically impressive is Jackson Carver, but he's literally learning how to play football, because he started playing football like very late in his high school career. And so he's just sort of learning, and I think he'll be there eventually, but he's probably behind some of these other guys. But when you bring in a guy like Elijah Lofton, you have Riley Williams, who caught a lot of passes in high school, and he's getting a little bit more mature, and Elijah Arroyo, who I think can be the leader in that room. Like, honestly, Will, if they don't get the tight ends involved this year, I'm going to be shocked, because that looks like one of the better performing position groups in practice. That doesn't always translate to Saturdays in the fall, but if it doesn't, I would be surprised.
Yeah, going back to Lofton, he's actually one of the freshmen I felt early on would end up on the field as the season started, because he's just that good, and he's a physical specimen. He's been better than advertised, better than advertised, as we've seen. Saw the one-handed catch, on Instagram. He's known as a Swiss Army knife, as well. You called him on your last episode, or one of your last episodes, Debo Samuel, 2.0 basically for the Canes.
Yep. And you know what? I wish I was clever enough to come up with that myself. It was actually Riley Williams who referred to him as Little Debo Samuel. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. No, that's fantastic. And I'm glad we have that in our arsenal as far as offense goes. So again, I'm going by what I've seen on clips and what I've seen and what I've heard you speak and others speak. How impressive is he in practice? I saw him run over a defensive back the other day on a running play. Like, how impressive is he in practice? And how's his blocking as well? I know Mario likes those guys that like to block as well.
No, he's an excellent blocker, and it's interesting to watch Lofton because, like, on the one hand, he's not the biggest guy. Like, he's a couple inches shorter than, because Miami has really tall tight ends. I don't know if he's in like the 6'2" range, but Miami, Riley Williams is 6'6", Elijah Arroyo is 6'4", 6'5", Jackson Carver's 6'6". So it's like he doesn't stand out from a size standpoint like these guys do. But and he's not like the fastest guy out there. But when the drills are live, Will, and when the 7-on-7s are live, he's physical. Like, he's very physical and he's very quick, and it's evident out there. And also, I don't think it's a coincidence that people started to notice Lofton more in like the late in the second week, third week, because it's when the pads started coming on.
Mm.
Right, because he wasn't quite as noticeable when they were basically just wearing t-shirts, right? Like, it wasn't the same thing. When the pads came on and the physicality goes up a little bit is when you start to see Lofton more. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I'm really looking forward to, and I not to tease this too much, because I know we'll circle back to this as to who I'm looking forward to watching in the spring game. I guess I'll probably lead off with Lofton, because for I'm not sure if it's going to be for the entire spring game, because they had different periods last year, but for some of that, it's going to be full live tackling, right? For most of it, probably full live tackling. And that's where I really want to see Lofton, because in practice, even when they have the full pads on, it's primarily thudding and contact, but they're not tackling to the ground. So once they actually start tackling the ground, I want to see, how many tackles he can elude and break out of.
Yeah, but he's not the biggest in terms of his height, but he plays bigger than his height.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the catches I saw and the physicality that I've seen, like I said, whatever I'm able to see on video, and
That's well said, because he gets those one-handed grabs. I see one
yeah,
of those at least per practice for him.
and it was contested. The one that made the rounds on Twitter and the one that made the rounds on social media, that was a contested catch. That was not an easy catch, and he just he arm caught that thing. It was fantastic, as well. So he plays bigger than what his height gives off, and he looks bigger as well. He's a stocky kid. So I mean, I'm really I think Percy will end up on the field. Whether you line him up, within the tackle, or you line him up, as an extra receiver. I mean, just or as a running back or H back, like you mentioned on your show as well. So I really do think that you're going to see this young man, because it's too hard to keep that kind of an individual, on the sidelines for too long, because you have to utilize him.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And it's just it's a fun weapon to have in your arsenal. And it's
Mhm.
like he really gives you reasons to be creative on offense, right? When you have somebody like Lofton, when you have, guys like Robbie Washington and Ray Joseph and Chris Johnson, like I just feel like you have to find a way to get these guys involved. Like, I was a little bit disappointed last year, and maybe some of this was on him. But with Brashard Smith, I thought that maybe part of that was just him needing to take a little bit more initiative. But I thought that a guy like that who transferred out should have been used a little bit more. So when you
Yeah.
when you have versatile players like this, I think getting them involved and getting them touches is important.
No, I totally can completely agree. But now we're going to talk about the spring game. All right, spring game will be at Cobb Stadium on April 13th at 4 p.m. Hopefully, there's spare tickets. I really want to go. I really want to check it out. Let's see what happens as far as attendance goes. But nonetheless, I'm still looking forward to at least even watching it on television. In the spring game, okay, from the class of 2024, we just talked about Lofton and we talked about Trader. Who is Alex Donno, really want to see? I know you talked about Lofton. Is there anybody else that you really want to see, put on pads and go to battle?
Marquise Lightfoot is one, and for numerous different reasons. Like, he's been getting good reviews. 4-star. He ended up getting a 5th star on I think it was on three, maybe also on Rivals. Like, right when the final rankings were updated. Defensive end. I think Jason Taylor is having a lot of fun working with him, and I'm gonna a lot on defensive line and offensive line, because those are the units that are hardest for me to watch in practice. Like, you really need a strong binocular from where they position us to see what those guys are up to, because they position the line of scrimmage guys like on the far kind of side of the facility from where we get to watch from. We see skill position guys a lot, which is, more entertaining. I guess they figure this is what people want to see anyway, but we line of scrimmage guys I want to watch. So definitely, Marquise Lightfoot, I put him up near the top. One of the names I mentioned was Bobby Pruitt. I do get to watch him and the linebackers some in practice, but with more contact and physicality and full tackling, I want to see what he can do. And I think everyone is going to have a pretty good time watching Trader and Nye Carr. Hopefully they get some catches in the spring game. And I remember Ray Joseph last year having a couple of flashes in the spring game and scoring a long touchdown. So hopefully we can see some stuff like that from these guys. And I want to see. I'm sure he'll get some PT in the spring game. My guy Judd Anderson. I want to see him out there at quarterback. I remember watching Emory Williams having some good spells as a early enrollee freshman in the spring game last year. I want to see what Judd can do out there at quarterback.
Yeah, how has Judd looked in practice?
Yeah, he looks, I think for the situation he's in, because that position, your head is spinning when you first get here, and he should still be in high school right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's looked pretty good. Like it's when you contrast him to the other guys, because all the 4 other scholarship quarterbacks all have at least 2 starts under their belt, with Emory having the fewest of those. But Emory looks really good. But so compared to those other guys, Judd, you could definitely tell like he's the rook. But I'm a fan of tall quarterbacks. I know that one of the things people are concerned about with tall quarterbacks these days, like when you're 6'7", oftentimes people think, okay, for today's athlete, maybe you're not going to be mobile enough and you're going to have the cement feet, right? You think about some of the tall quarterbacks, like, Brock Osweiler was like, the size of an NBA center and wasn't very nimble. Joe Flacco obviously had a lot of success, but, and still has success, but it's not always the most mobile guy out there. But I think what makes Judd so unique is, and you can see this on display in practice, is he moves very well for a 6'7" guy. Like I think there's no question about it. And it's something that, during his recruitment process, I interviewed Judd a handful of times, and we also talked about his multi-sport background. And he was also a high-level basketball player, and he moves very well. And you can see that, like he's got nimble feet, and he's athletic and mobile for somebody his size. And he's got some tape in high school of, running for touchdowns and creating some plays. And the arm talent looks real. Like, every now and then you'll see a young quarterback out there over the years, and you can say, okay, this guy doesn't, he's got to develop a little bit more. The throwing motion's a little funky. None of that with Judd. I think he's got really good mechanics. He was well coached in high school. He's had some private quarterback coaching on the side that I think has benefited him. So I think he could be a good one. And I think it's a good situation for him to have 4 guys in front of you who all have experience starting in games, right? With Cam Ward being a 4-year starter already, Reese Poffenbarger having 2 years of starts under his belt. Jakari Brown has, I think, 4 or 5 starts under his belt. Emory Williams had, he happened to start in the 2 toughest games as opposing defenses, the 2 toughest opposing defenses Miami faced last year. To be able to compete with these guys and learn from them, I think puts him in a really good position.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see him play. I know he wanted to be a Cane. He was very happy to be recruited by Miami, and I think he's I think it's funny because last year we were all the team was struggling about depth in the quarterback position, and now this season that's not much of a problem because it's a pretty loaded quarterback room. So I'm really happy to see that. Circling back now, over back to the spring game, we talked about guys in 2024 that you're excited to see. We're pretty much the same here. But as far as guys have been with the team for a while, who do you want? Who are you looking forward to see maybe take the bull by the horns a little bit more in the spring game?
Yeah, I mean, part of this is, I think that there are players that, definitely have some pressure to perform because they're, young guys breathing down their necks trying to get jobs. I've seen some good stuff in practices from Shamar Kirk. This will be his 2nd year with Miami, 3rd or 4th year in college, transferred out of JUCO last year. I expected him to get more playing time than he did. He was virtually no playing time last year at receiver. So he's somebody where it's like, this has got to be his time to I don't think he'll start, but to get in the rotation, to get on the field, like this has got to be Shamar Kirk's time. Otherwise, when you've got guys like JoJo Trader and Nye Carr and Ray Joseph and Robbie Washington that are trying to steal your reps. Like I think this is going to be an important spring game and an important year. And I've been pleased with what I've seen from him so far. A guy who I do think has established himself as a starter at receiver, but I want to watch him in the spring game is Isaiah Horton. Zay, to me, he was like one of the question marks, Will, that I had coming into spring because, Xavier Restrepo, excellent. He's established. He's going to be, a starting receiver, in the slot. Jacoby George, he's had his issues with the disciplinary stuff, but as far as on the field, he's an established guy. He's going to be a starter out wide. And then you have the spot that's left open by Colby Young. And it's like, I really wanted to think Isaiah Horton could be that guy, but I wasn't sure. I'm more confident that he can be that guy. Like, I really think he stepped up and had a good spring. So I want to see him in practices. Chris Johnson, for sure, I want to see because, you can definitely, if you're not careful, you can get lost in that running back rotation because he's been getting a lot of good reps in spring practices, but Mark Fletcher and AJ Allen are missing all of spring. So, Chris is getting a lot of extra opportunities with just less bodies in the room. I think he's practiced really well, but I want to see him have a really good spring game. Trevante Citizen is another one. And man, people were really confused because I was talking a little bit about my projected depth chart today. And, I don't think Citizen, like I wouldn't pencil him in to be too deep right now. Like I'm going to go with, as far as like who my top two guys, Mark Fletcher when healthy, AJ Allen, probably my number two, or maybe Chris Johnson right there to be number two. So I didn't mention Trevante Citizen. A lot of people were like, wait, did he have a setback? Is he still on the team? No, he's recovering. He's doing well. Mario Cristobal had a lot of praise for Citizen after last Thursday's practice. Cristobal said that something really clicked for him and that he's starting to kind of get that confidence. Because I think for someone in his situation, and he's missed the last 2 years completely. He hasn't even played a college snap yet because his first 2 years had a knee injury and a setback. And I just think that there's so much that goes into that full recovery. You've got to get there physically, and he's physically healthy. He does wear a brace on his knee, but probably for precaution. So you got to get physically healthy, but you also like mentally, with all he's been through, you have to get back to sort of that mentality where you're not worried about every cut you make and every step you take. And I think he's starting to put that together, but I think there's a lot to overcome. So I view Citizen, and I can't wait to watch him in the spring game because I'm glad to see like he's participating in full contact drills and scrimmages and stuff. I can't wait to watch him. I view him as an X factor because he's been through so much and he's working his way back from so much. If he can get back to what he was coming out of high school, he could be, probably one of the two best running backs on this team. Like I think he and Fletcher could be 1A and 1B if Citizen can get back to that. So I apologize for neglecting to mention him on Locked On Canes today. So I wanted to make sure to get that one out there. And, for other in the defense, I mentioned some of the names already, but another one I'll say for defensive backs, a couple of them, Damari Brown and Robert Stafford. Like they have big time opportunities this year because again, I think Daryl Porter to me is untouchable. He's going to be a starter at corner. But you've got the star nickel job, which could be different players situationally, but you've got snaps and a starting job up for grabs there. One of the outside corner spots is going to be up for grabs. I think Jadis Richard is in the lead, but there could still be competition there. So I want to see guys like Damari Brown and Robert Stafford who have practiced pretty well. They both, I think they missed the first week or they were limited the first week with injuries, but they've both been practicing very well since. I want to see those guys.
Going back really quickly to Trevante Citizen, he had a really bad knee injury, but he was a stud coming out of high school. How's his burst looking as far as his speed goes? Because I was told, by a friend of mine that he looks good going north and south. That as far as the downhill running goes, he's effective. He's very powerful. He's very strong. But as far as his speed goes, how has he looked? As the knee is the knee look like it's fully healed, or do you still have ways to go in that regard?
Yeah, that's one of those things where I haven't really seen it with my own eyes. Because when Mario was really praising him after practice last week, I think he was referring to 11-on-11s and the parts we weren't able to watch. So, like in mostly the situational drills we've watched, like I haven't had the opportunity to see him at full acceleration. Like it's a lot of controlled situations where things are not necessarily being run at full speed. So it's like I'm just saying with what I've seen with my own eyes, like my personal assessment on Citizen is I've been thrilled to see him out there. Like he's not even wearing like the no contact jersey that some guys wear. I mean, you can't miss him because he's got like a NASA brace over the formerly injured knee. So you always know when it's Citizen out there, but he's full participant. I've seen him take a few knocks in like the thudding and the contact. I think it was in one of the practices 2 weeks ago. He took maybe a little bit overly aggressive of a hit from Zaquan Patterson, like the kind of thing where it's like, maybe you should have been at a 5, you're at an 8 on that one. And it was like, okay, you saw him absorb this hit and he was all right. And I don't know if he was too happy with Zaquan in that moment, but I think Zaquan only has one speed. So it's like, based on what I've seen with Citizen, like I can say that, he looks good to me, but I haven't been able to see enough where I can say, okay, he's making the cuts and he's accelerating, to full speed. I haven't seen enough to make that assessment, and that's one of the reasons why I can't wait to watch him in the spring game.
That's awesome. I really hope we see him. I really hope he shows off some of that speed that he had back in high school as well. Aside from the power as well, because
Yeah.
he's also that's another big kid. So when I saw,
And I will say
yeah,
physically, I think he's up to like 230 pounds. Like you could tell, like
wow,
he's added size, and he was big when he came in. I don't know if
yeah,
he was like 215, 218 coming out of high school, but he's gotten even bigger.
yeah. That's what makes the hit by Zaquan Patterson so impressive. The fact that because Saquon should literally still be in school, in high school, going to prom basically, and he hit somebody who's about a couple years older than him and sent him backwards, who's supposed to be a stud. So that's when I saw that hit, I'm like, oh, we got a good one here with
Yeah.
Zaquan. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, you spoke about it on your show, and Coach Hayes, and was very passionate about it, is the fact that the University of Miami is going from Chase Stadium to host their spring game on campus, which is very limited seating. A lot of the fan base is incredibly upset. I know a couple people that wanted to take a flight to Miami to watch the game, and now they're not sure exactly if there's going to be available seating for them. What have you heard about that situation? And is it something that the University of Miami couldn't work out with Chase? And what about the seating situation as well? Are they going to try to get as many bleachers as possible to fit as many fans as they can?
Yeah, a lot of conjecture because I don't, outside of what's been reported, I probably don't know a whole lot more about it than what you know. I do know that they're going to bring in some temporary bleachers because it's at Cobb Stadium on campus, which as a permanent structure, like their permanent cement bleacher, only holds about 500 people, which is like
Yeah,
is laughable. Okay, and I know
yeah,
that they're gonna construct some extra bleachers, but I'm not exactly sure what they're going to get the capacity up to, if it would be 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. I don't know if they're going to double it, triple, quadruple it. Obviously, there's going to be more than what's permanently built there. I know that one of the reasons why, like you talk about people being upset about this, is like the ticket priority has gone to season ticket holders, Hurricane Club members, who are people who are donors to the athletic department. Like it very much has the feeling of like a VIP event, right?
yeah.
And as far as like why they decided to do it this way, I have a couple of guesses. And one of the things, I don't think people are talking about this aspect of it as much. I think that the environment that they're trying to create, I think, is more convenient and potentially better for recruiting, because you're going to have, like I can speak on the visitor list from last year. I don't think the visitor list has been finalized yet for this year, but there were dozens of high school recruits at the spring game, including Justin Scott, who ended up being Miami's top ranked commit, and was actually he committed to Ohio State before he circled back and committed to Miami. But Justin Scott and a bunch of other blue chip players were there. And I think maybe the idea of having it on campus where you don't really have to disrupt their visit plans and they can experience the campus while they're there. This is just a guess on my part, but I'm sure this is because I know how important the spring game is to recruiting. And if you can maximize that, that's probably part of the thought process here. Now, I know in saying that, you're not going to make too many fans feel a whole lot better. So like a part of me wants to withhold some of the judgment because I want to see how it looks, because maybe they feel like in that environment, they can create a certain kind of experience that maybe will look better streaming on ESPN Plus. Maybe it'll look better for the recruits that are out there. But obviously my logic is a little bit flawed because, like you mentioned, I know people as well who are from other states. I know some Hurricanes fans in the Chicago area,
Mhm.
North Carolina, Georgia, who are, I think some of the people I know are Hurricane Club members. They were able to secure tickets, so they're coming. Others are like, I don't know if I can go, if I can even guarantee getting into the game. So those are the people that I feel really badly for. At least for people who are outside of South Florida, it is going to be available streaming. So, if you weren't planning on coming to the game anyway, you will be able to watch it, ESPN Plus and ACC Network Extra. But it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, Will. Like the idea that I know like the spring game turnout is never great. And that may be part of the reason why they wanted to put it on campus, because not a whole lot of people show up to the spring game anyway. But for those diehards who do, you're costing them. And I know some people who are season ticket holders who actually got an email to confirm their tickets, and they didn't reply to the email quickly enough. Maybe, they didn't see it till several hours later. And by the time they replied, they couldn't secure tickets at that point. So the exclusivity part of it, I know is something that bothers a lot of people, and I understand it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex, for clarifying that for us as well. Young man, I promised you that
Thank
I
you.
promise you I get you out early, okay? Because I know you're very busy. Thank you so much for joining us here in 305 Sports Now. But Donald, can you please let us know where we can find you? I know it's Locked On Canes, but you're also doing a lot of things as well. So can you please inform us?
Yeah, the reason why I'm so busy this week is I just started doing Locked On ACC. I'm a part of that team as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
still doing
Congratulations.
Locked On Canes. Thank you. Still doing Locked On Canes as always. This is an addition, not a subtraction. Also co-hosting Locked On ACC with my guy Kenton Gibbs, who's a former NC State defensive lineman. We got you covered. Obviously, talking a lot of basketball right now with NC State being in the Final Four, representing the ACC there. We'll be talking a lot of football though throughout the process once March Madness is over. So you can check us out YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, Locked On Canes for all the Miami fans out there, and then Locked On ACC as well. Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you so much. And don't forget, Alex Donno also occasionally does do some hosting on WQAM as well. So if you ever driving around and want to hear the radio a little bit, you might find Mr. Donno on radio as well, doing Heat, doing Canes, doing Dolphins. I can tell you, man, he is a utility guy over
I'm the
in
Elijah
the
Lofton of WQAM.
Yes, you are, man. You are the Swiss Army knife, my friend. You definitely are. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to 305 Sports Now. Once again, for Alex Donno, I am Will. Stay safe. God bless. See you soon. Go Canes. All about to you guys. Bye-bye.